And how soon do you think we would be marking this up? Before recess?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm calling to order this hearing. This is a public hearing of the Committee of the Whole of the Council of the District of Columbia. I'm Phil Mendelson, Chair of the Council and Chair of the Committee of the Whole. Today is Thursday, May 23rd, 2024. The time is 2:09 p.m. And this hearing is being held in the council chambers. That's room 500 of the Johnny Wilson building. The subject of this hearing is Bill 25-611, entitled Adjustment of Building Restriction Line in Square 2950 along the southern side of Fern Street Northwest, SR 23-06301, Act of 2023. The stated purpose of this bill is to reduce a building restriction line from 15 feet to 9.5 feet along the southern side of Fern Street Northwest on lots 847, 973, 1016, and 1033. And also lots 1062 to 1072, all of which I believe are in Square 2950. This is in Ward 4, and as I said, it's the southern side of Fern Street. And the adjustment of the building restriction line is necessary to facilitate the redevelopment of a portion of the former Walter Reed Army Medical Center campus. As the hearing notice says, the file at the surveyor's office is SO 23-06301. The bill was introduced as SR 23, but I'm guessing SO is the correct terminology. The record in this matter will be open for 2 weeks. That is, it will close on Monday, 5 p.m. on Monday, June 4th, 2024. So anyone who wishes to submit comments who is not commenting today has 2 weeks to do so, and anyone who submits comments today and wishes to supplement them has 2 weeks to supplement them. The legislation was introduced November 30th by Councilmember Janice Lewis George. I do want to note we have 2 hearings to follow this one, one beginning at 3 and one beginning at 3:30. I will call Katie Wyasek, who's Managing Director at Hines. I'm guessing you're representing the developer. And I'll have the government witnesses. When you're ready.
Chairman Mendelson and members of the council, staff, and district residents, good afternoon. My name is Katie Wyasek, and I am a managing director with Hines here in our DC office. Hines, along with our partners, Urban Atlantic and Trident Development Group, are the master developer for the parks at Walter Reed, the redevelopment of 66 acres of the historic Walter Reed Army Medical Center. On behalf of master developer, I am in support of Bill 25-611, which reduces the building restriction line from 15 feet to 9.5 feet along the southern side of Fern Street Northwest. For some background on our role, the master developer entered into a ground lease with the district in November 2016 when the land was transferred from the Army to the district. I have been involved since the RFP phase and am proud of the vibrant redevelopment that we've created thus far, working with the community and with the Office of the Deputy Mayor for Planning and Economic Development, including the completion of the Whole Foods anchored retail marketplace, condos, apartments, co-living, senior affordable housing, and infrastructure support for nonprofit users such as So Others Might Eat. The parks includes 340 completed affordable dwelling units thus far, almost 30% of the completed units. Toll Brothers is the home builder developing 47 townhomes and 94 stacked flats on the parcels quote, A through G on our master plan, fronting Fern Street, which I'll refer to as the project, that is impacted by the building restriction line, or BRL. We have been working with Toll Brothers since the proposal in 2013. Toll Brothers commenced design of the project in 2021. We have had significant community engagement on this project and prior development components. The Parks has a community advisory committee which convenes public meetings a minimum of 6 times per year. Each development within the parks must obtain Historic Preservation Review Board concept approval. The project received a resolution in support of the concept design from our ANC 4A on October 5th, 2021, and the project received unanimous HPRB approval on February 24th, 2022. The townhomes planned along Fern Street importantly present a buffer and transition from the residential neighborhood to the north. The projects will also deliver family-sized homes with 3+ bedrooms, including 12 affordable dwelling units. The project design advanced following the concept approval, and we completed the civil design, received permits, and completed lot development for the lots with homes that were set back 10 feet from the property line. Unfortunately, the project had progressed without knowledge of a 15-foot building restriction line, as the due diligence completed by Toll Brothers had not revealed the BRL from a 1972 survey. The 2014 Alta survey done prior to the district closing also did not include the BRL, and the district's public survey database, SurDocs, which does show surrounding BRLs, did not show a BRL on the south side of Fern Street. The BRL area does not contain any utilities, and there was no objection to a reduction from the utility companies. We appreciate the support of Ward 4 Councilmember Louis George in introducing legislation to reduce the BRL such that the project can move forward. We also appreciate the support of ANC 4A. We have been hard at work for years to bring this project to fruition, and it would take years more and a significant investment to redesign, achieve HPRB approval, re-permit, and reconstruct the infrastructure, placing the project in jeopardy. Despite economic headwinds for real estate development, including construction cost escalation and high interest rates, we believe there is a high need for family-sized units, and this project is ready to start construction pending permit approval. We thank the council for considering this legislation.
Thank you, Ms. Weissek. So how is it that it was missed? And I'm looking here. It showed up on a plat from the 1970s, yes, from a 1972 survey.
Yeah, so my understanding is, and maybe the surveyor office can help explain this, when the land transferred from the Army to the district, a new plat had been created, and that effectively wiped out the building restriction line. However, during the public space permit review process, Office of Planning pointed out that the survey still showed a BRL, which had not technically or officially been removed through legislation. And so the project had already progressed to the point of submitting for permits for lead walks and stairs in what they thought was public space, and that then presented this issue of a BRL. And we went actually back and forth about whether it did in fact exist and or not with the surveyor's office and how to resolve it. And we concluded that it needed to be removed or adjusted if the project were to move forward via council action.
So I was going to ask, are we convinced that the 1972 survey is accurate? But I guess in all these discussions, it was concluded that it was accurate.
I think my understanding is that the roadway width and the BRL cannot be adjusted without council action. So though the survey and the plat had changed, there hadn't been a council action in the record that officially removed that BRL previously.
So did I understand from your testimony that some of these townhouses have been built?
No, we have graded the lots, installed the utilities serving the lots, and installed the alley. So our role as master developer was to provide finished lots so that the home builder could then proceed. And we did that in parallel with Toll Brothers proceeding with their design of the buildings. And so we have invested millions of dollars to prepare the lots, and Toll Brothers is ready to start. But if the BRL was not adjusted, all that infrastructure would need to be relocated.
And say again, how was it realized that this building restriction line existed?
Toll Brothers submitted for a public space permit for the stairs on the front of the homes and lead walks, which are in what they understood to be public space outside of the property line. So the design was done assuming based on the property line and setting back the homes 10 feet with a porch to reflect the neighborhood architecture, because the houses on the front, houses on the opposite side of the street have porches, and the porch and the stairs were in public, a portion of the stairs were in public space. So that was the typical process to get public space approval for any walkways and stairs that extended outside of the property line. And it was at that point, Office of Planning Review brought up the survey and asked if there was a record of it having been removed.
Okay, give me just a second. I don't have any other questions for you. Stick around, which you probably will anyway.
Okay.
In case I have more questions.
Thank you.
So Raymond Labrador, Deputy Surveyor, Office of the Surveyor, and Brant Miller, Manager of the Policy and Legislative Affairs Division at DDOT. Mr. Labrador, you want to go first?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Good afternoon, Chairman Mendelson, council members, and staff of the Committee of the Whole. I am Ramon Labrador, Deputy Surveyor for the District of Columbia at the Department of Buildings. I appear before you today to provide background information on B-25-611, adjustment of building restriction line in square 2950 along the southern side of Fern Street Northwest, file number SR 23-06301, Act of 2024. This resolution was introduced by Council Member George. The purpose of this bill is to reduce the existing 15-foot building restriction line along a portion of Fern Street Northwest within square 2950 and affecting lots 847, 973, 1016 to 1033, and 1062 to 1072 to a 9.5-foot building restriction line as shown on the surveyor's plat. The portion of the 15-foot building restriction line along Fern Street was created by a subdivision shown in the records of the Office of the Surveyor in Subdivision Book 42 on page 8, recorded March 16, 1911. The title to the affected lots could not be determined to be held by the District of Columbia or the United States. The applicant for this resolution is TPWR Developer LLC. The Office of the Surveyor notified the relevant executive branch agencies and utility companies of the application on October 10th, 2023. In a letter dated December 1st, 2023, DDOT objected to the proposed reduction of the existing 15-foot building restriction line until the following conditions are satisfied. The applicant resolves all concerns related to the alley public access easement and records the easement with the DC Recorder of Deeds. And the applicant must agree with DDOT's Urban Forestry Division regarding the disposition or preservation of 3 special trees and 1 heritage tree along Fern Street Northwest. To date, we have not received comments from DC Water, Office of Planning, Fire EMS, or Solid Waste. The remaining executive branch agencies have no objections. The utility companies were notified of this application on October 10th, 2023. To date, we have not received comments from Washington Gas. The remaining utility companies have no objections. Pursuant to DC Official Code the DC Surveyor's Office notified the National Capital Planning Commission, NCPC, of this application on October 10, 2023. In a letter dated October 25, 2023, NCPC staff determined that the proposed project falls under an exception listed in Chapter 8. The project was also made available for public review on the NCPC website, and no comments were received. Accordingly, the staff has determined that this project is exempt from commission review. Pursuant to DC Official Code, Advisory Neighborhood Commission, ANC 4A04, was notified of this application on December 10, 2023. To date, we have not received any comments from the ANC 4A04. This concludes my testimony. I appreciate the opportunity to appear before you today and welcome any questions you may have regarding this matter. Thank you.
Thank you. Give me just a moment before you proceed, Mr. Miller. When you're ready.
Good afternoon, Chairman Mendelson, members of the council, staff, and district residents. My name is Brant Miller, and I am the manager of the Policy and Legislative Affairs Division at the District Department of Transportation, commonly referred to as DDOT. I am here today to present testimony on behalf of Mayor Muriel Bowser and DDOT Acting Director Sharon Kirschbaum regarding Bill 25-611, the adjustment of building restriction line in Square 2950 along the southern side of Fern Street Northwest, SR 23-06301, Act of 2023. The stated purpose of Bill 25-611 is to reduce a building restriction line from 15 feet to 9.5 feet along the southern side of Fern Street Northwest on lots 847, 973, 1016 to 1033, and 1062 to 1072 in Square 2950 in Ward 4. The adjustment of the building restriction line, or BRL, is necessary to facilitate the redevelopment of a portion of the former Walter Reed Army Medical Center campus. As outlined in the surveyor's order report filed by DDOT with the DC Surveyor on December 1st, 2023, DDOT objects to the proposed reduction of the existing 15-foot BRL to 9 foot 6 inches along the south side of Fern Street Northwest until the following conditions are satisfied. The applicant resolves all concerns related to public access easement in the alley, especially where it concerns public access from public streets and allows for the safe flow of traffic, and records the easement with the Recorder of Deeds. And the applicant reaches an agreement with DDOT's Urban Forestry Division regarding the disposition or preservation of 3 special trees and 1 heritage tree along Fern Street Northwest. Should these conditions be resolved in a satisfactory manner, DDOT would support the proposed reduction of the existing BRL. This concludes my testimony. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to testify before you today. I am available to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you to each of you. So I do have some questions. First, minor and technical. Mr. Labrador, the bill is entitled in part SR 23-06301. Is that incorrect? And it should be SO 23-06301?
No, as far as I know, it was recorded as SR 23, and that kind of makes sense. That's usually how our numbers are running, like it's an SR. The SO could be part of it, but in this case, like for example, sometimes our numbers are SR and then includes the year and then it's an SO, but it depends on what the order. In this case, this is correct. Like the SO doesn't have to be added to this project number.
Well, SO is Surveyor's Office. SR is. I'm being told SO is surveyor's order. And what's SR?
I assume that it could be for surveyor's record, but usually the naming convention that we're using is SR, the year, and then the file number in this case. So the SO doesn't have to be added to this one.
All right, so SR is correct.
Yes.
All right. Second, the developer's representative testified that they appreciate the support of ANC 4A, but you don't have a record of ANC 4A testifying?
That is correct.
Third, Mr. Labrador, how is it that this project got as far as it did without realizing that there was a building restriction line?
I am not sure how it got to that point, but we can definitely prepare a response if we have to get back to that. But I'm not sure how it got to that point without nobody finding out about this BRL.
Mr. Miller, do you have an answer?
I do not.
Mr. Labrador, would you look into that and get us a response?
Absolutely.
Because that is kind of a big deal not only is this hurting the developer who's gotten all hung up, but the purpose of a building restriction line is to respect the building restriction line. And if people don't know about it, then it's kind of hard to respect the building restriction line.
I agree.
Give me just a second. Mr. Miller. I don't understand what an alley has to do with the building restriction line.
When the plat is recorded, it will include the easement with the building restriction line, as I understand it. And so we have to come to an agreement about the easement in order to record.
I'm not
building
aware
restriction
of
line.
any easement.
There's an easement associated with those lots in the square. We're currently working with the developer to determine the location of the easement.
Wouldn't that be a condition of the public space permit?
Yes, but for the easement to be recorded with the recorder of deeds, we have to come to an agreement with the developer first, and we would like for the building restriction line being recorded on that plat to be associated with the conditions of the easement.
Oh, I'm getting confused. So, the reason all this came to light was because the developer wanted these projections into public space. And the Public Space Committee has to approve that. A permit has to be issued. You could condition the permit on the alley, although I'm still not quite getting what the alley has to do, because I'm assuming the alley's in the back. I don't even have a site plan for the development.
Oh, yeah, the alley runs both north-south and east-west through the square.
Yes, maybe. I'm looking at the plat. It looks like an alley is actually lot 973.
So
The plat.
the area I'm talking about runs from, on this plat, it doesn't specify where 12th Street, but it's from 12th to Georgia and from Fern to the north. So the alley is south of Fern.
And the building restriction line will be on the north side of these houses.
Correct.
I'm still not feeling convinced that we have to condition, that the council has to condition the change of the building restriction line in front of the houses and something happening with the alley behind the houses. And you, meaning DDOT, still has leverage over this to the public space permit.
Yes, the Public Space Committee is separate from DDOT. But in terms of this,
Staffed by DDOT.
yeah, but it's a separate entity from DDOT, the Public Space Committee. It operates separately from the department. For the easement, because it's connected to the same property that is associated with the building restriction line in our development review, this would be a part of our review process, is the easement review, as well as the BRL.
Is this a public alley?
There is no alley now. It would be an easement. It would be a public access easement to allow public access to the
So-
proposed alley on the lot. But
That's
I-
why the alley is not on the
correct.
plat.
Yes, I think the plat that I'm thinking of is distinct from the plat that you're looking at because it's just a portion of this larger plat.
Do you know what other approvals are required for this project?
In terms of the development review,
In terms of the ability to condition, put conditions regarding the alley?
so when we develop our surveyors, our memo for the surveyor's order for the SR, it goes through multiple reviews within our agency. And so the planning team has the alley piece, right? So we also talk about the trees. So that's UFD. So in terms of the alley, that's something we're still negotiating with the developer in terms of public access to that proposed public access easement. I think I'm unclear about which process you're asking me to clarify the steps on.
Yeah, I'm not feeling persuaded, so maybe DDOT can submit something following the hearing that helps me better understand why we're conditioning the alley on behind the houses next to them on the building restriction line. But doesn't this also create procedural issues for the developer? They need their permits to build the houses. They can't get their permits until they resolve all concerns related to the public access easement alley, which I'm guessing probably also includes that it's built to standards.
Correct.
Well, it won't be built until after the houses are built. So how could they satisfy the easement?
There's a plan for the easement where there's a proposal for how wide the easement is, where the egress is on the easement. And so that's what we are currently negotiating with them. And so that's what we would have to come to an agreement on and have recorded at the recorder of deeds before they begin building the houses, because they would have to respect the easement in the construction of the houses.
And why do the trees relate to the building restriction line?
As I believe that they are abutting the line. I think in our previous testimony before you, we conditioned it on procuring the permits. In this case, we just want there to be an agreement between the Urban Forestry Division and the developer for whether or not, for example, the special trees would be disposed of or preserved, and the heritage tree would be preserved. So again, it's a part of a larger development review for the BRL. And so it's inclusive of the review of the tree preservation.
Give me a second. The moment I don't have any other questions. So Mr. Labrador, you'll get back with, after you do some investigation, how this could have happened. And Mr. Miller, you're going to submit a better argument for why we're conditioning a building restriction line in front of the houses on an alley to be built behind the houses.
Yes.
And a building restriction line, by the way, has nothing to do with transportation, whereas the alley does. So help me with this.
I'd be happy to better clarify the development review process, which I think may help us in future hearings as well.
Okay, thank you. I am going to ask Ms. Wysick to come back. So you guys are excused,
Thank you.
unless you want to sit at the table with her.
Thank you.
Why don't you have a seat? Ms. Wysick, you testified that ANC 4A is in support. Could you provide us with a copy of that letter?
Yes.
You can
can
do it
I-
after the hearing.
I think there was also testimony submitted virtually from our ANC 4A not Councilmember Chair.
Yeah, that's possible, but I don't think we have a copy of the resolution
So
or
the,
letter.
I don't have a copy with me, but the testimony I know was submitted, our member district
Yes.
individual submitted it on Monday. And for the first, I think it was either emergency or temporary legislation, my understanding is they submitted a letter in support.
So I'm asking you if you would dig that up and get it to us.
Yes, I will dig
I
that
could
up for you.
probably dig it up if they, but it's easier for me if you do it. So if you would provide that, a letter from an ANC commissioner is helpful. It's not the same as the ANC itself submitted, expressing support.
Okay,
And if they express support, it would either be in a letter or in a resolution. So
yes,
if you would provide that, would you also provide us with a site plan that would show me the alley?
yes. And I can explain the alley condition if that would be helpful.
Sure.
So the alley, initially, I think we envisioned it is as a private alley, and it is providing access to the garages in the rear of the homes fronting Fern Street, is also providing access to the townhouses that are fronting Elder Street. And we have a condition of homes that front each other with a landscaped central area. And so those homes are not, the A&T lots for those homes are not abutting a public street. So under the zoning, we are getting clarification from the zoning administrator as to whether the frontage is requiring of the record lot or the A&T lot. And if it is for the A&T lot, then we need to enter into a public access easement with DDOT. But the permits that are affected are not related to the homes fronting Fern Street, because those homes are do not require public access or an easement granted by DDOT. And we have been working with DDOT for a year on the easement. It is a very long negotiation.
Yeah, the houses on Fern Street, because they're on Fern Street, is
You-
not an issue with.
No, we would otherwise just have a private alley. We have a community association to maintain and manage that alley. And the Fern Street homes do not require any public access easement to get permits if the BRL adjustment is made.
Yeah, when you mentioned private alley, so there will be some sort of document, easement, something between the homeowners with regard to the maintenance of the alley.
Correct. The Walter Reed overall site has a community association that is formed. We have conditions, covenants, and restrictions, including access across public streets and alleys. We also have a condo. There will be a condo association formed specifically for the Toll Brothers development, which includes stacked flats. So those are condo units, and that condo association will ultimately manage and maintain the private alley. But as an interim step to satisfy DDOT, we did an amendment to our CCRs to acknowledge that the wider community association would be responsible for any maintenance until that smaller condo association is formed.
Okay. Give me a second.
I do have a site plan with me if it's,
You can give it to us after, you can give it to me afterwards. And that'll show the alley, these
Yes.
private alleys. So you heard me give DDOT a hard time, but my question to you is, do you accept the conditions that they're asking for?
certain, so starting with the trees, we certainly would implement any protection needed as part of the regular permit process to protect trees that are in public space. So I don't have any objection to that. I don't know that it needs to be a condition of the BRL because I think that's required in order to have a permit for construction. On the alley, I also do not believe it should be a condition because we have not concluded whether it is required or not through the zoning administrator.
Okay.
Also, I think we've worked very hard to try and meet all of DDOT's demands and requirements for the easement. And at one point, we were told that it was in final execution form and it's taken a very long time. So that is a concern if it's a condition.
Okay, so with regard to the alley, you're not, and you're speaking on behalf of the developer, you're not accepting that as a condition. And with regard to the trees, it sounds like you are accepting that, although you think that's covered anyway.
Yes.
Okay, that answers that question. Give me a second. I don't have any other questions for you. So after the hearing, give me the site plan if you would,
Yes.
and then subsequently get me the A and C letter. Anything else any of you want to provide, please do that. I'm going to close out this hearing. And our next hearing will start at 3 o'clock. The time is the record in this matter is open for 2 weeks, closes at 5 o'clock. On Monday, June 4th. I don't think June 4th is a Monday. I think that's a Tuesday. Let's say the record closes in 2 weeks. The time is 2:47 PM and this hearing's adjourned.